Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to grecochess, the chess YouTube channel. I'm your host, Karilas Aniziris. In the previous video, after a request by one of the viewers, after a remark, I decided to publish into the Greek language the game between my Facebook friends Konstantinos Siebos and the French Grandmaster Etienne Bacron. I had presented it in English a few months ago. And we're returning now to the regular schedule. By the way, if any of you are Greek speakers and would like to have more videos in Greek, please tell us so, and I'm planning to have more videos in Greek if there is such a request. Especially if there are people that are not very fluent in English and would like my videos and want to have a better chance to understand them, I'll be glad to make them also in Greek. What are we doing now? If you remember before that, the previous video, we had been able to defeat all the 1700 rated chess.com bots, and we were planning to start with the 1800 bots. But before them, time once again for a puzzle rush. Today, once again, puzzle rush. We have a record of 50 correct puzzles. The way this is working is that chess.com is going to throw us one puzzle after another until we get 3 of them wrong, and then the game stops. And in the comments, I'd like to ask the viewers to tell us if they find them easy, difficult, how are they doing, if they have tried the puzzle rush themselves, and what is their score and their record. Also, while I'm doing them, I'd like to ask the viewers, pause when a new puzzle comes on the screen, try to solve it on your own and see how can you do it. That's the best way that we can all learn and improve together. But now, let's share the screen. And here we are. Best record for today, 33. Earlier I was doing some practice. I was able to get 33 correct. Top score 59, which, as I have mentioned, is not correct because once there was an issue with the chess.com puzzles and they were throwing the same puzzles again and again and again. And no surprise, I made a record. But 50 is my real record. And let's start now. Puzzle number one. As I'd like to, as I said before, if you cannot do it, pause the video until you do it. But I think that is a simple one. We have basically the same story of rook and king versus king. You can get rid of the most of the other pieces, and the only ones relevant is 1, 2, 3. King faces king. The opposite king is on the last rank, on the 8th, on the edge. So what do we do? Rook goes to the edge and checkmate. Next one. Back rank issue here. What do you see? 3 pawns blocking the white king. So what do we need to do? Take the rook and checkmate. Next one. Similar story, but here it's going to be delay because the black queen, after my rook goes to d8, the black queen can block for one move, but then we win the queen and checkmate. Don't even care about that. Another back rank, another case of 3 pawns blocking the opposite king, and the rook goes to the edge, checkmate. Here, similar story, but because the king is next to the rook, one rook alone would not do the job, but two rooks, the one supporting the other, can checkmate. Here, the kiss of death. The queen goes next to the king, supported by the rook here. King goes to g7, checkmate for white. Next one here. White again to move. Here it is not exactly, meaning that alone the queen and the bishop would not checkmate, but fortunately for white, the black queen here is blocking the escape of the black king. Checkmate. What do we do here? Here it is one move checkmate, but one needs to look at all the checks to see which one can it be. Of course, it's not queen go to the bishop, not queen take the pawn, not queen going to f2, but we have another checkmate, bishop to h3. Here, Similar with the one before, the queen is supported by the knight here, and the white queen is blocking the white king's escape. Here, it is two moves checkmate. First move, queen goes to f2, checks. King has to go to h1, no other legal move, and queen goes to g2, kiss of death. The queen is next to the king, supported by the rook here. Here, what do we do? Three white pieces collaborate. The rook, the queen, and the bishop. How do they collaborate? Look at the squares around the king. The king can go nowhere, but there is no check. Meaning, if these three pawns, the two rooks and the queen, would disappear, and if it was black turns to not exactly, the king would escape here. It's not that it would be stalemate, but if we can check the black king without removing control from any of these squares here, that's all we need. And the way to do it is the rook goes here. What do we do here? It looks very tempting to put the queen on g3 check and the king can only go to h1. And the question is, so what? If the queen goes to check, king goes back, and we have back and forth repetition draw. The rooks cannot check, but we can have a wonderful discard check. Look at that. Yes, the pawn would take the pawn. Don't even expect it to do that. Here, what can we do? First of all, we finished the 12 first puzzles. We finished the entire the first line here, the first row, 12 out of 12. Fortunately, because sometimes in the past we had issues even in the first one. It's not so easy. How can we do check? There are only two checks. Of course, this is useless because we lose our rook. Of course, if exchange looks we're still a bishop ahead, but anything better. Because black is one extra bishop. No, we're not. I'm sorry, I'm miscounting. Black is an exchange down, so we need really to checkmate. Otherwise, exchanges cannot do the job. What if bishop goes to a3 check? King goes to b1, and then what? Rook cannot go to d1. What if rook goes to b4 check? King goes to a1, bishop goes to b2, and then we win the rook. It's not checkmate, but we win a rook and we're ahead the bishop. If my calculations are correct, I can't see anything else. Yes, 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 and we got the bishop. Here, a similar case with before. Queen goes next to the king, and the two pawns block the escape of the black king. Instead of having a queen next door, we have these two. Let me mark them out here. After the queen lands in e5. Next one, what do we do here? Still, we're at the level where usually the answers are checkmates, although there was one case where we just won the rook. But we usually start with checks that are forcing moves. What if queen goes, and what checks do we have here? The only check I can see is queen goes to c6 check. Then where can the king go? Look at the squares around. The king can only go to h1. That is still, let's do it again. And the queen goes to g2, kiss of death. The queen is next to the king, supported by the bishop on h3. What do we do here? A queen took the bishop because actually the black queen took our bishop because a queen and the bishop were ready to checkmate, but fortunately we have this pawn. If the pawn takes a queen, let's see what happens. White is going to checkmate. Black cannot stop it, but can black do any checks and stop us? Not that I can see. The black can neither control g7 stop the mate, nor check in any way. Fortunately, this bishop is blocking this rook. Otherwise, I'm not sure if we would have stopped it. At least I would have postponed our checkmate. Let's see if this is the answer. Yes. What do we do here? Checks. I mean, we have quite a lot of checks, but some of them are useless. And the only check that we don't lose a queen is the one from e3. And then what does black do? Of course, the king has to go to h1, or the move, and then a queen will take the rook on c1, and the rook can postpone one move to d1, queen takes rook. Let's see if this is the case. Yes. Let's continue. The only safe queen is check I see for black, so they don't lose material, is queen goes to g3. And then black has only one legal move, king goes to h1. If bishop goes to g1, queen can go to h5, and then rook takes queen. Let's see if this is the answer. Yes, that's it. Let's continue now. What is happening? We're going to lose a knight. If that was not the case, queen goes to c7 mate, but queen cannot fly to c7. I think the easy parts are over. What checks does white have? No, it's not so difficult as it looks like, because the black king is surrounded by, look how many pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4. And it has only one square to escape. But what if we check the black king with a way that would also control f7? And there is one way to do it. Knight goes to d6. Yes. Easier than what I thought. What's happening now? White has a very good position. If white is to play, you see rook goes to g8 and it's mate. But fortunately it's black to move. So black must check. We cannot play a quiet move like pawn to a5 or anything like that. And the only move I see is if a pawn goes to c1 and it's a check. It promotes a queen, it's a check. Now what can black do? If king goes to e4, queen should go to e1, and I think it checkmate. Maybe they can go to d3, but then checkmate will soon follow. What if pawn goes to c1 check, king goes to anything in the g? Then pawn goes to the g file, king can go to the h, and the rook goes to h2. I can't see anything better. Yes, they don't even ask you for the follow-up. Here, I don't see checkmate. The only check I see is if queen goes to g2, but it's just a blunder, losing the queen. But let's see the material. Both sides have queen, two rooks, two knights, two bishops, and six pawns. Material is the same, so if we can win even one piece, that's more than enough. If queen takes knight, queen takes queen, knight takes queen, and we're ahead. But what if queen takes knight and bishop takes knight? A queen can take queen, for example. Rook takes queen, and then a bishop takes the knight, among other choices. Or maybe even the knight can go back. Of course, the knight can take knight, but if we can exchange queens a piece ahead, it's even better. So as first move, I would have queen takes knight. And now we have to be very, very careful. No, we don't have to be careful. There's only one option. Knight takes queen. And king takes bishop. Here, let's see the material. Queen, white has queen, two rooks, and bishop. Black has queen, two rooks, bishop. Pawns, 6, versus 6. Material the same, so if you can win anything, no matter how small we are ahead, we can win, I think, a rook. Queen attacks rook. Both get black too. If they take back, a king takes it to a rook ahead. What if here and black decides to pin the queen? Also, the bishop supported by the pawn, but it's not so easy at all. Because think about it. We win the rook. They pin us. Now, if we take the bishop, queen checks. We got a rook and a bishop for a queen. 8 versus 9. Sometimes it may be better, but still it's so small the difference that it doesn't mean too much. And a queen has to do something. A queen is going to get lost. Can we attack the queen? I can't see anything better than queen taking rook. We're in huge danger because if we do nothing, for example, if we move a pawn or anything else, we just lose a queen for a rook. At least now we lose a queen for rook plus bishop. Anything else, but it doesn't seem to be an answer to the problem. Queen to rook. Because it doesn't give us a winning position. It just stops immediate disaster. And still will not have a good continuation. But what else can we do? If the bishop goes here, for example, to block the queen, the rook takes a queen. So I'm going to take the rook. Now here is a catchy case. A queen, if we take the bishop, queen takes a queen with a check. If queen, black is going to checkmate. If we move the pawn, for example, here, this is immediate checkmate. If we put the rook, still they take a queen with a check. Of course, you can put a rook on g1. You can put a bishop on g5, and then the pawn will come to f6. I think the least evil, the smaller evil, as they say, is takes the bishop. Nope, wrong. So the first wrong, after 21 correct, we have the first wrong. Here, what's happening is the knight at f3 is pinned. And also a knight is pinned. Wonderful. Now, no matter if you take the knight with a knight or with a bishop, they must take back with the pawn on f3. Does this give us anything? Here, well, yes, we'll take it to the knight. Look what's going to happen. They take back with the pawn. Queen takes queen. They take back with the king. And knight, bishop takes knight check. And then we win the rook. Now this is a check, so they cannot take a queen. They must take the deal with the pawn. Otherwise, they lose their queen. Yes, we got it right. Here, both sides have rook, bishop, and 4 pawns. We have a knight check with the bishop going to e8, and the king has only one square to go to g5. And then with the rook goes to g7 check, I think it is mate. All squares are covered. So we finished the first two rows. The first was flawless, 12 out of 12. The second we had 11 out of 12. We'll see what went wrong later. And here we are behind by an exchange. We have queen knight 4 pawns. They have queen rook 4 pawns. But if the knight checks from e3, what can black do? If they just move the king, we win the rook. We are ahead by a piece, by a knight. If they take it with the queen, we win the rook. We win back exchange. Material is the same. We're not clearly not winning, but at least we got back our exchange. What else can we do? What if queen takes rook? Then black, the black takes the rook. Then white can take the queen. In fact, the queen is pinned. It has to do something not to get lost. If it goes, for example, next to the king, we just are ahead, piece ahead. And now the knight goes to e3 check. I think that should be the answer. Yes. Let's hear what's happening. Here we have, you may remember that that's what I like to have, to win the dark colored bishop next to the black king with a combination of queen from d2 and bishop on h6. Because then black has already pushed the g7 pawn to g6 and the king is less well defended. But here, there's a nice little tricky situation. White forgot to put the rook to d1. You may remember in my games, I like to put the rook to d1 or at least to queenside castling. Because look what's going to happen now. Look what, first we exchange the bishop, we take the bishop and white has to take it back with the queen, otherwise you're done a piece. And you double check, we start with equal material, yes. And then we win the knight. What if white decides to take the knight first? Take the queen with the check, and then we win the knight. That's even better. Good, we got it. Now, what is the case? Black has 2 pawns next to each other, connected pass pawns near promotion, but for the time being, not so easy because this f pawn cannot be pushed, it's blocked. If the g pawn is pushed here, white will take a pawn with a check and they'll win the other pawn. And then goodbye both of our pawns, and black has the extra knight and the pawn. So because white has the extra knight, if we don't promote the pawns, we're out of luck. But what if we check here? Of course, if king goes to the c file, we want the rook. But what if they block it with the rook? And what if we exchange rooks? Pawn goes to g2, and we are promoting. Or at the very minimum, winning the rook, but I think we're also promoting. Yes, both won the rook and we're promoting. Now we have to be careful. You don't want any fork with a knight, because if we make a queen, they can check us, but there is no fork. On the other side, because of this pawn, we can be guaranteed there is no stalemate. Yes, correct. Here, there's a tricky situation. White has queen, 2 rooks, 4 pawns. Black has queen, rook, bishop, knight, and 5 pawns. Materially, black is slightly ahead. It's a tricky one because it looks that black is covering very well both the rook and the queen. If you take, for example, the queen, both bishop and knight can take back. If we take the rook, we can take back. But look what we're going to do. We'll take advantage of the fact that the king is on the 8th rank here, and it's going to be a wonderful pin. Rook takes rook. Queen takes rook. Until now, the material doesn't change the material balance. If anything, black is still even slightly better because they were better before and we exchanged rooks. But now our rook goes to b8. And because of the pin, we win queen for a rook. Now we are really ahead. Here, Black has many ways to check, assuming check is the first move. Most likely yes, but we cannot be sure. Queen can go here, and so what? Queen goes here, so what? Queen goes here, so what? In fact, we lose a queen here, we lose a queen there. Queen goes here, and so what? King escapes to b7, or even a rook can go back. But look at the other check we have. Queen goes to a1. What can white king do? Only one legal move to d2, and then queen goes to e1, and it's mate because the pawn and the rook are blocking the white king. We got it right. Let's continue. Here, they say that the queen and the knight is a wonderful combination if you can use them together. So here, especially the knight is going to protect squares next to the king. But that cannot be the answer because if queen goes, I was thinking to g7, queen takes queen. Nope. Let's see, what checks do we have? Well, most of the checks are useless because if bishop disappears, for example, if it goes here for a check, yes, it's true there's a discover, but the knight protects the other queen. Not going to be easy. What if pawn goes to f4 to attack the queen, goes here, check, and still covers the whole diagonal? What can we do? What can we do? Bishop taking on e6 is very tempting, but first of all, okay, of course, you understand what's happening. If bishop takes and the queen takes the bishop, a queen goes to g7, now the square is free, and we have a very strong attack. Still, it's not mate. King will go to e8. Knight goes to f6 and so on. King can still go to d8. That's not going to be easy, not easy at all. What can we do? Black weaknesses. Clearly, we have three pieces next to the black king. That is an enormous advantage. But what is the tactics? Bishop goes to g6, very, very tempting. Because how can black reply? The pawn will take a bishop. And then, if only, if only a queen could take the queen without worrying of this knight here, because this knight is killing us. The most tempting moves is bishop goes to g6 or e6, but the problem is I don't see follow-ups. Anyway, we can attack the knight. I cannot see. Course, one can think bishop takes here. Queen, if queen takes, we have a check, but still it's not so dangerous as we thought because the king has escaped squares. If rook goes to e1, attack the queen, queen can take the bishop. Then our queen can check from here. Yes, and if queen leaves, it seems that rook going to e1 is the most promising. But which of the two rooks goes to? And usually, if it matters, this is not the answer. If queen goes away, we take the pawn with a bishop, and it's very dangerous. If queen decides to take a bishop, a queen goes to g7 with a check, and after the king goes to e8, a rook can check, but the queen will take a rook. Think of it. If rook would go here, this will take us a long time. I'm not going to rush it. If you viewers can watch it, can find a solution, great. Because be careful. Goes here. Queen goes here, check. And king goes here. And I don't even see any follow-up. I wonder what can be the answer. And king and queen are king's light color, queen in dark, so the knight cannot do any fork. Who knows what is the answer to that? A bishop is in danger. Very good. Material, how are we doing? If anything, we're a pawn down, so exchanges are not going to help us. Let's see, queen to g7, check. Queen takes queen. Bishop checks here. Even if he takes and we take, we lost a piece for a pawn. We are stuck. We are stuck. Puzzle number 30. We had 28 out of 29 correct. And puzzle number 30, we are completely stuck. And no, I'm not going to stop the video. I'm not going to edit the parts where I'm thinking. I'll have to make a wild guess at some point. My wild guess. Let my bishop take on e6 the pawn and see what happens. Correct, and they don't explain why. We were lucky. We got it right by accident. Let's see what is happening here. I think this is easier. The rook goes from. Imagine you play a game, you are stuck, you have no idea what to play, and then through a random generator you pick up one move, and it happens to be the best possible move. Sometimes Lady Luck is on your side. Now, rook goes from e8 to e8 check here, and king has, okay, of course, black, actually, white will not sacrifice the queen. By the way, we're down because white has queen and rook, and black has two rooks. Also, white has another 6 pawns, but these pawns will kill white. If rook goes here, of course, queen is not going to go to either e4 or e7 to stop it. They just lose the queen. King can go either to d1 or to f1, and in either case, a rook goes to b1 and it's mate. Oh, they are sacrificing their queen. Why? To postpone the mate by one move. So, what's happening here? This is the combination of rook and knight, but queen needs to sacrifice herself first. Queen goes to h7 check, king takes, rook takes, and that should be mate. I'm not sure if they call it the Anastasia mate or the Arabian knight. They have some crazy name, this mating combination. Check, and rook goes to h3 mate. Let's see here what's happening. We're not in check, almost, but we're not. If knight goes to e7, is it mate? Where can the king? First of all, can the knight be captured? I don't see. King where? b8, b7, d7 are controlled by white. Yes. Here, what's happening? The most tempting is put the rook to f from a8 to h8. What can white do? King goes to g5, and then that is a big question. The and then rook goes to h5. King goes here. Rook goes here to g6. That is, rook goes to d6, and king can go to here. Rook goes down, and then I think the last move is made. Let's see if this is the case. Anything else white can do? Not that I can say. Block. Okay, good. Here, what's happening? A bishop is an attack, and before black could not take it before they moved the queen to b6, because if they took it, then because of the pin, we win the rook. But now black can take a bishop with a queen. We need to be careful. So we also are attacking the knight of black. I think of. But if we take the knight, they can take a pawn, and then our rook is in danger. If we take the knight, they take a bishop with a queen. We exchange queens, and then what? Materially, how are we doing? Queen, two rooks, 4 pieces for white, and 7 pawns black. Queen, two rooks, 4 pieces, 1, 2, 3. We are 1 pawn ahead, but this means very little. Assuming I counted correctly, of course. Okay, of course, if you take the knight and they take back a bishop, we change queens, and then we win the knight. But what if we take the knight and they take a pawn? We take the rook, they take the rook, and then it's not so easy like saying we take the knight, because then they'll take a knight with a check, and if the king moves, they take the rook. But I can't see any other way to start other than taking the knight. Yes. Oh, so much easier than what I thought. They don't take the pawn, so we exchange queens, and we need the knight. Imagine spending all this time. It's like it happened to me in games. My opponent was thinking and thinking and thinking, and I was spending my all of my time thinking the best possible response, how to continue, couldn't find a way out, and after thinking and thinking, they played an inferior move that I didn't even need to. I said to myself, I wasted all my time thinking. Now here, what's going to happen? The white king is under attack. A queen, we cannot check from h3 because the knight from f4 will take the queen. But we can check, forget from here it's not mate h2 because the queen is here. But what if we check from h4? If you block with the knight, we take the knight. If you block with the queen, it's checkmate. What else can they do? I think nothing else. Yes, that's correct. So we finished 3 rows, 35 out of 36. We only got stuck in the which one? The number 22, if I'm correct, puzzle. We have 35 out of 36 correct. Quite well we're doing. Here, the queen can check, and so what? There is EU, yes. If queen checks, look what's happened. If king goes to e8, queen goes to f7, it's mate. But what other options does black have? Queen takes, queen takes. Rook, now here's a nice trick. Never forget that this trick I used it when for the first time, I won a chess.com online tournament in the crucial game. Rook goes to f7 check, and then we win the queen with the steward. Yes. What do we do here? A king is next to the bishop, but the knight is protecting the bishop. We have a rook. Also, the problem is that black has a pawn or b3 near promotion. That is pawn association is very easy. We cannot afford to let the pawn promote. Rook has to go to b7, but should it go now or can we wait for later? Nice to keep the pawns connected as much as possible. But can we also win the a5 pawn and then go for the the a4 and then go? But if we get the a4 pawn, rook can go to c2. We win the bishop, of course, but the dangerous part is how to win here. Then rook can go. Okay, we cannot send it to b4 because of the knight. If we send it to a8, knight can go here. If pawn takes it, this pawn can go very easily to the end. That's why taking the pawn is not a safe way. I think the safest thing is put our rook to b7. But then black can wait forever. Let's do the kind of combination. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5. If we go here, the king cannot stop it. Let's move up on to d6 near promotion. Yes, got it right. It goes to b7. I don't see how black can stop it. But now our rook has to go to b7. Yes, we got it right. I'm not sure if it's the only way to win it. Well, at least it worked. Here we have a wonderful fork, double threat. If pawn goes to d5, we attack both the knight on c6 and the bishop on e6. If the bishop takes a pawn, then a bishop takes a bishop. Can they attack a queen? Well, if the knight goes to either b4 or d4, a pawn on c3 will win it. I think that's the answer. Ooh, not so easy. We'll take the knight, they take the queen, we take the queen. And with a check, yes. Let's continue. If only a bishop could go here and pin the queen. Is it so easy as that? How the bishop cannot fly over the pawn, unfortunately. But what if pawn goes here and the next move bishop goes here? If queen goes away, then we win the bishop. Can they threaten anything? Small threat, yes, they can threaten knight, for example, but we'll win. There's a problem. The bishop can go there, but the problem is the bishop is not protected. If a pawn goes here, and they play anything, the bishop goes here, queen takes bishop. Not so easy. If knight goes to g4, attacks a queen. Queen has to leave. And then what? Again, the end what question. But if pawn goes here, forget about the fork. Actually, forget about the pin. We have pawn can continue here and threaten the knight. Bishop has something to do, or pawn has to do something. Pawn goes again. Well, if pawn goes here and they decide to attack a knight goes here, attacks the queen, and while they save the queen, we win the bishop. I think the first move has to be pawn goes to d5. Is it? Yes. Next move. I think here we have the fork. Pawn goes to d4 and we attack both the queen on e3 and the knight on c3. But knight takes a pawn. And then we win the knight. Yes, because of the protection of the queen. And now we win the knight. Good. What do we do here? Rook attacks a queen cannot take the rook because of the pawn, cannot take the pawn because of the queen. And we sacrifice the queen to win what? The knight, lose the queen, and we win then the bishop. So what? Two pieces for the queen, not a good idea. Because we can win rook and knight for the queen. Queen, and then we use this. Still, I don't see anything. Where can a queen be safe? Can be safe either in b8 or in a5. Or maybe in d4. D4 attacks the rook, but protected by the queen. Oh, no, in d4, no, we have the terrible knight. The queen can only be safe in b8 or a5, but it's hidden, not where you want it to be. Material, how are we doing? Queen, two rooks, two pieces for us. Queen, two rooks, two pieces. Pawns, four for us, five for white, meaning we're down one pawn. If we check with the rook, bishop takes rook or queen takes rooks, and so what? Queen to b8 or queen to a5 seem to be safe moves that will save a queen. But I can't see follow-up. We have a rook on h8 and knight on g8. I have no move at all. Neither has a king on e8. Development, we're way behind. So unless we have a nice combination, it is, don't want to say good night, but it's not going to be easy. And if we save a queen, white has a chance to remove the knight from f3 and send it to tons of squares, like e1. What can we win? If we get the rook, we take a queen. We take the knight and we threaten the bishop. The bishop has to go somewhere. Clearly cannot go here. The least evil. Let's take the rook. Nope, wrong. I'm sure there's some secret combination that we failed to see. Yeah, how are we doing? We have rook, knight, two bishops. They have rook, knight, two bishops. 7 versus 7. I'll tell you the same. If the rook takes a bishop, king takes rook, knight checks, then knight wins rook. Look what's happening here. I think that is easier. Yes, yes. Now we have the fork. You may say, so what? We just got back the exchange we gave. If it goes, for example, here, it doesn't matter where, we take, white takes, and then our bishop takes the unprotected knight, and we got a piece. Now, if the king, so we got an extra piece, but how can we save it is the question. The best way to save it is here, and then a knight work, and then I'd go to save it. If it goes to a2, it's safe for one moment, but then the king goes to b2, and the knight has nowhere to go. I think the bishop has to go to a4, so that the knight later can go to b3. And now on knight is safe, we have the extra piece. Great, we did it. 40 out of 42. Let's see how more can we do. Our record is 50. Can we break it? If rook goes to g2, it is, oh, this looks like the windmill. He can only go to h1. Rook goes to f2. He goes to g1. Rook g2, here. Rook goes here. And we win little by little everything. Let's see if this is the answer. Is there anything faster? If the pawn goes here, no. I think the best is here. Yes. Yes, it's the beginning of the windmill. Little by little, we'll win everything. This is why to play. And although the material is, if anything, black has two extra pawns, I think it's checkmate in one move with the epaulets. Queen goes from e5 to g5. And black king has nowhere to go because the two squares that usually could go, f7 and h7, are covered by its own pieces and pawns. We did it. Here, let's see what can we do. Material. We have knight and three pawns. White has bishop and two pawns. But our pawns are in danger. The question is if we exchange, because we have the chance to exchange a bishop. We'll go like that. Then we win the pawn, And I think no matter what black does, the pawn from d6 will promote. They only have this pawn left, and by the time they take this pawn and clear the path, this pawn has been promoted. Which pawn should we push? We have to be careful. Both can promote or not. Let's take this randomly, but it's the same thing here, here. This is very crucial. Pawns will promote simultaneously. Be careful. The question is, do we have to have a queen on d8 or f8? If we have it on d8, I would rather have the queen on f8. Because the white king can be anywhere after, look at it. The white king can be anywhere between g5 and g7. I'd rather have the pawn safe here on d6 because if after what's happening we lose the pawn here on f6, the d pawn can give us the win. But the other way around, I'm not so sure. Let's see. The story is the following. White will have a queen on h1, will on h8, will have a queen either on d8 or f8. And the king is going to be on the g file. Where would you rather have it? We'll check from g8. Now, if we push the d pawn, the king cannot go here. It can go either here or there. We'll check with a queen. Queen cannot take here because we have a steward. Queen can go here. Imagine the whole game can be decided on a detail like that. After one spent hours to reach this winning position and lots of energy. What if white delays the promotion by one move? Let's see what can happen here. These are the thoughts that a player needs to do during the game. Yes, let's go here. And now white decides to take the pawn instead. Promotes. Let's do it again. What if white decides to take the f-pawn? Are we winning here? We can attack the pawn all we like, but the king will protect it. So I'm not feeling so confident with that. I'd rather start pushing the f-pawn. Who knows? 50-50. Cross our fingers. So we have the d-pawn. Yes, we got it right. And now, here, how do we win is the question. We are going to go to f5 to check, and the king, no matter where they go, they are going to lose. We'll like change queens next move, whether they go to g7 or to h6. And then we promote the d pawn. Yes, that was it. Had we pushed the f pawn, it would have been the third mistake, we would have finished. But for now, we are safe. Now, let's see what do we do here. The white king is not very, very safe. It's not attacked, but it can only go to h7 and g7. If we go, send a rook to h8, and you have two moves in a row, a rook goes to h8, and knight goes to f5 in checkmate. The question is, can white stop it? If a rook goes to h8, do they have a Schwechenschuk, a move that will stop knight from going here? The only move I can see is the bishop goes here. But an only move, but it's a good move. So it's not so easy like placing a rook on h8 because bishop goes there. Unfortunately, it was too good to be true. Two moves checkmate. If we could play two moves in a row, but white can't stop it. If knight checks first, king can go to h7, and then what? Knight goes here, king goes to h7. It was so nice for rook to go h8, but still, even if it was not for the bishop here, if rook goes to h8, the knight can go here. And if we check, we lose the rook. So it's not so easy like that. What if the bishop goes here, preparing for the knight to go here? King can escape here. That's not easy at all. Now the difficult ones are starting. What if we exchange knight with rook? So what? Materially, we are a pawn ahead, so what? It's very tempting to just constrain the king at the corner by placing a knight on f5. In fact, many problems start with checks. Can't think anything better. Let's see if this check will work. Yes, it worked. Good. Although by pure luck. If the bishop could go to g6, if the bishop could fly to g6, I think it's mate. But can it go first to h5 and then to g6? How can they stop us? I don't see how. If the bishop goes to g6, it's mate. Let's double check. The bishop cannot be caught since it's next to the king. There's no interference. The pawn protects the bishop. King cannot go. Nope, 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 nope. And I think bishop to g6 is mate. Good, we finished 44. Oh, that is an easy one. We've seen this pattern many times, but you sacrifice your queen first. Queen goes to h2 check, king has to take the queen, nothing else. Rook goes to h6 check, and king goes back to g1, and rook goes to h1 mate. Imagine after the previous that was so difficult, having this is so familiar. Good, we got 45, but we have two wrong. We must do everyone correct from now on. Here, knight versus bishop. And how many pawns? We have six, they have six. So it is whoever can go first. Any passed pawns? No side has first pawns, but if yeah. There was no tactics. Long term, one wants to activate the knight. It's not a good square knight 2. It cannot go to c3. If it goes to c1, and here, but what else can one do? Can the bishop be 1? It is also on a very bad square. e1 can only go d2 and f2 are the safe squares. If the king goes to e3, e2, the bishop has nowhere to go. Because it goes to g3, the pawn will take it. I think that is the answer. While a knight, at least it's safe. May not be active, but safe. But the bishop is both inactive and unsafe. King e3, e2, e1. Exactly. Now we got the bishop. Good. What do we do here? If it was not for this knight on e6, the queen would go to g7, it's mate, but now the knight will take the queen. If queen goes to f6 check, king goes to g8, and then what? Knight can go to h6 check, king goes to f8. And then, no, let's start again. Queen goes to f6 check, king to g8. Knight can go to either one of them, and king to f8. You either go here or to e7, and king goes to f8. And then what? The question is, would it be possible for the king to land on e7 and for the knight to d5? That would be a wonderful fork. I don't see any other beginning. Of course, if queen goes to f6, the knight cannot go to g7. That's mate clearly. Queen goes to g7 mate. I think queen goes to f6. I can't see any other beginning. Yes. Now the knight, the only follow-up I see is knight goes either to h6 or e7, but which one? In either case, king goes to f8. Any chance if queen goes to g7 and is taken by the knight goes to h6? No, because king has f8 and h8. But if really king was blocked by other pieces, that could be a possibility. Knight goes to e7 check, king goes to f8, and the knight could go to d5, threatens the queen. And no matter what happened to the queen, a queen could go to h8 and eat is mate. Let's see if this is the answer. We said knight goes to e7, check, king goes to f8. Knight goes to d5, queen goes anywhere to be safe because it's going to be taken. And then our queen goes to h8, it's mate. I cannot see anything better. Oh, black decides to give us the queen good. Here, if only the queen was not on e7, our queen goes to g7, it's mate, but the queen will take it. What if queen goes to h8? At least it can safely do the check, give the check. King goes to f7. The question is, so what? Queen goes either g7 or g7. King goes, if king of course goes to e6, rook goes to e1 check. And then queen goes to, let's go to g7, king goes to e8. And then what? Let's think of it. Queen goes to h8. I can't see any other beginning. Any chance queen can check along the line? No, because if it checks from here, the only other choice, knight will take it. So queen has to check from h8 to begin the ball rolling. Yes. Now queen will check either from h7 or g7. h7 gives any extra option. Will give the option on f8. So let's check from g7 to minimize the options for black. Wrong. So we got 47 correct. It's not a record, but we are near. We are near. Let's see what did we do wrong. Let's see this one. Here, we start by the queen taking the rook. And then what? What did we do wrong? This is what we did wrong. Let's try again. I try. Can we put a rook? Nope. Let's see the solution. The solution. Oh, I thought of it, but still there was still pin. It's not protected by the pawn any longer, so this was the answer to the first one. We'll do it. Yes, here it is. 1, 2, and now you see that we'll take the bishop. Yes, and we'll keep a queen. Okay, that was the answer. Let's see the next one. We tried taking the rook, but that was not the answer. What would have been the answer? Anything like that? Nope. What we did last time, we started here. Nope. This can be the answer? No. Can this be the answer? Yes. Yes, because now we have to take the rook. And let's see the last one. So this is the first one. Is this a second? Yes. Why is this a second and not the previous? Because here you go to g6 maybe. Before you could also have gone to g6. Why h7 and not g7 is the question. What I don't understand, why G7 would not have worked. Because would also, let's see, look at it once again. 1, 2, and if it went here, because the H7 pawn would protect G6. So this is the answer. We got 47, one of the best records. The third of all times it says here. What does it mean? In fact, it's the second because the 59, I'm not counting it. So after a record of 50, it is the next best score we had. A long, long one. Thanks everybody for watching. I hope you are patient until the end. I hope you tried with us and did your best. This is Harry Lawson series, the Greco Chess channel. Goodbye.